Well, I think what the North Dakota Taxpayers Association is all about is balance. I mean, there's always the fine line of how much do you spend and how much do you save. How much do you give back to the taxpayers in the form of services or in lower costs of government? And, there are 600 registered lobbyists in the state that go up there every day in the legislature, and they represent spending. They represent more spending, more money, more tax dollars funneling into the system. There's nobody up there representing really the taxpayer that says, well, that's great to spend all this money, but I have to pay for it. How about balancing that out some to me as well? And an organization like the North Dakota Taxpayers Association allows people to get involved in that balancing of the arguments, the balancing of the information flow to the legislators who make the ultimate decisions.
The public still has a lot of ability to influence policy and decision makers, and I think the more the public knows about what's going on in terms of health care, federal spending and those kinds of things, the more likely they're able to influence our congressional delegation. We have a couple of those that are up for election in 2 years. In 2010, both Senator Dorgan and Congressman Pomeroy are up. And I think if they hear how the public views the healthcare industry, changes that the administration is proposing for energy, things of that sort, I think both Senator Dorgan and Congressman Pomeroy are going to be more sensitive to how they exercise their votes on our behalf in North Dakota, and may influence how those elections take place in 2010.
We've advertised this statewide and actually in Minnesota as well. Open to anyone who wants to come and hear a message about important things going on in Washington, D.C. The feedback I've gotten has been fantastic. It's taken several weeks to put it together, and it's actually taken over a year to get John Fund here. We really couldn't have anticipated a better turnout for a wonderful day on an Easter weekend. We're very glad how it's turned out.
Well, I think one of the things that concerns me is we seem to have gotten into the spending mentality. I mean, in North Dakota, we've doubled the size of the general fund budget in the last 8 years. It's good in North Dakota. We've got a good economy and we're able to pay for it. But will we be able to sustain it? And as you know, we're in cyclical natures of economy with agriculture and energy. They both go up and down. And when we have been there in the past, in the 1970s and the 1980s, when we went on a down cycle, all of a sudden we had to cut services because we didn't have enough money, revenues coming in, and we had to raise taxes. Those are a bad balance for the people out there, and it really hurt our state. What's going on nationally, of course, is just spend, and it isn't confined to one party these days. It's Republicans and Democrats are spending a lot of money, too much money, and again, is it going to be sustainable? You've never been able to buy your way into prosperity. And that just doesn't work. Energizing people, allowing them to spend money, allowing people to generate the economy is what makes it work. Government can't do that. Government won't do it. Government's not designed to do that. But what they're saddling us with are the taxes to pay for it. And I'm not so sure that we as a nation, we as a people, are able to sustain that effort.
The government cannot spend us into prosperity. Prosperity is in the main streets of small towns all across North Dakota. So the more money we let the people across the state keep, the better our economy does. This expansion of state government is the exact wrong direction the state should be going, and that's why it's so important to be a member of the North Dakota Taxpayers Association and get involved.
I used to be governor's counsel for both Governor Hoeven and Governor Schaefer, and in both of these administrations we used to talk regularly about how we felt like the taxpayers were a lot of times absent from the discussion in the legislative sessions, that all of them talked about the idea of needing a taxpayer advocacy group. And out of those discussions, the North Dakota Taxpayers Association has been born. NDTA, the Taxpayers Association, has been very active in the legislative session. In 2009, we've had, I would say, somewhere between 50 and 75 hearings in which we've offered testimony, and I think have had some influence on the public debate. The executive director has had discussions, debates with prominent policymakers or people who influence policy.
What the North Dakota Taxpayers Association really tries hard to do is amplify the collective voice of hundreds, hopefully thousands of taxpayers across the state of North Dakota.
But to have a renowned economist that writes for the Wall Street Journal to come into North Dakota and say, this is the way we see it. I mean, this is what it really looks like. North Dakota has always done better than the national economy. We have our own little state here and our own pieces of the economy, and we do really well. But there's a whole big world out there that we're not so tuned up with. And to have someone come in and say, I'm not from a special interest group. I'm not from somebody that makes a living off of government. I'm not here to tell you that government's the answer and government is good. I'm here to tell you how it affects the economy, how it affects you as an individual, and how it affects your pocketbook. Those are things that all North Dakotans are interested in.
It's a fundamental debate about the direction of this country. Are we going to be the same kind of nation our founding fathers bequeathed to us? We've had something like 17 generations since the founding, and each of them transferred down to us certain values: independence, entrepreneurship, belief in family values, free markets, the entrepreneurial culture. And I think we've retained a lot of that our founding fathers bequeathed to us, but I think some of that is in danger now, because now with the bailout nation that first the former President Bush and now Obama have brought us, I think we're in danger of, entrenching something I call the corporate state, where the corporate state is something in which big labor, big business, and big government all get together and divide up the pie and leave much less for average Americans, much less for small businessmen and women, much less for people who are trying to bring themselves up by their bootstraps. In other words, it's sort of dividing up the pie and making sure that no one has time, space, money, or the freedom to bake their own pie.